Attention, small humans. The story that follows is the story of the Daleks' master plan. If you are not sitting comfortably, then you will be exterminated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than the Daleks' Master Plan. So if you haven't watched it, listened to it, then turn away now at your own peril. You have been warned. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the Daleks' Master Plan. Our story starts when the Doctor and Stephen and Katarina land on the planet Kembel. Ba-ba-ba-bum. And Katarina and the Doctor and Stephen are all kind of getting used to knowing each other. Stephen seems to start off the episode with some kind of blight. He doesn't realise that Katarina isn't Vicky, and he seems to forget the fact that Vicky chose to stay behind. Unwilling to accept this reality, Stephen starts murmuring on about Vicky, and Katarina has to assure him that she is the handmaiden and has been assured that she is better off now with the Doctor and Stephen. Upon landing on the planet Kembel, elsewhere, a young space agency agent named Brett is lurking in the shadows of the forest. He is trying to stay out of the way of the Daleks, knowing that they are planning something big on the planet Kembel. The Doctor leaves the TARDIS in hopes to find something to cure Stephen's illness. In the forest, he comes across Brett and ends up in a bit of a kerfuffle. Brett convinces Katarina to let him in the TARDIS, and upon doing so, he lets himself into a world that he doesn't understand. Brett thinks of himself as a very smart man, well, until the Doctor wakes up and realizes that Brett has made a classic mistake. He's taken over the TARDIS. He's bossing them around as the crew. But of course, Brett leaves the door open, leaving him under the Doctor's supervision. And so the Doctor takes this chance and takes this opportunity to jump Brett. He knocks the boy out and straps him to a chair. He uses a magnetic force on the chair that won't even let an elephant move, causing Brett to be completely paralysed. While Brett is paralysed, the Doctor takes this as a better opportunity to go back outside onto the planet and search and learn exactly what's going on. Upon going outside, the Doctor soon learns that the Daleks are having a meeting with a bunch of other species in hopes of destroying the universe. But why? What could be their end goal? And most of all, who have they chosen as their alliance? The Doctor is eventually let free by Katarina after he helps to cure Stephen. Whilst outside in the jungle, they soon learn that the Daleks are closing in, and they've started burning the jungle down to stop anyone from knowing of where their meeting is. This is most probably due to the events of the Mission of the Unknown, which we will do in our next Doctor Who review video. But essentially, a crew kind of discovers the Daleks' plans, and this is why the Daleks in the beginning of the Master Plan are very on high alert. Mavic Chen and a bunch of other people involved in this meeting have all come together, but one of their 8 group is missing, and so the Doctor discovers this member in the forest. He knocks the young man out, or old man, and he takes over his cloak, going to the meeting and pretending to be him. Once the Doctor goes to this meeting, absolutely in the Needles Pit, the Doctor has to try and fit into the meeting. Mavic Chen all of a sudden thinks something's up, but he doesn't divulge his suspicions straight away, as he slowly lets the Doctor mingle in, helping address him to the right seat. Once at the table, they all agree to the power of the Time Destructor, something that uses this Mercury sort of power source that can destroy life on a catastrophic level. After the meeting's over, the Doctor takes this opportunity to nick the power converter of the machine and run away. All of a sudden, the whole meeting gasps as they watch the Doctor leave the scene and flee. They don't know it's the Doctor at this point, but they know someone's taken the power source for their destroyer. The Doctor, Katarina, and Stephen flee through the forest, but with the Daleks closing in, they have very little places to go, and so they decide to take over the spaceship of Mavic Chen to fly off the planet with the device. Mavic Chen informs the Daleks of the situation, and they of course send a Dalek fleet after the strangers. Whilst they try to get to other planets, they crash land on a prison planet, which becomes the worst odds they could possibly think of. The prisoners on the planet are savage, they have no morals, and most of all, they will take what they want. Upon seeing the spaceship, one of the prisoners sneaks off and scuttles his way on board, becoming a stowaway. When they think everything's alright and they've managed to fly off the planet, all of a sudden Katarina is grabbed around the neck by one of the strangers and ends up in a fight in the airlock. The Doctor and Brett and Stephen try and come up with a solution to save Katarina, but of course it's futile, as they turn off the mic and know that there's very limited options. They try to find a solution to help her be saved. But of course, Katarina sadly doesn't know the difference between the door control and the airlock, and so she pushes the airlock button and gets flung out into outer space, suffocating to death. The whole crew, Stephen, Brett, and the Doctor, mourn her loss, knowing there was nothing they could do and how powerless they were. But now they only have one mission left. Whatever they do, they must make sure that the Daleks never get the power source to the Time Destructor, and the Earth authorities should be let know of the greater scheme at large. After many false starts, the Doctor, Brett, and Stephen eventually manage to get to the security service, what Brett is a part of. They try to inform the security service of the danger, but of course Mavic Chen is already one step ahead of them and has told the whole security service to be on alert for 3 strangers. Brett is eventually killed by the Daleks, leaving Stephen and the Doctor in the midst of a young Sarah Kingdom. Sarah Kingdom doesn't believe a word of their absurd story. She follows orders just like a stormtrooper or anyone who follows orders in any sort of franchise. And so she does it to the letter and tries to get the device back off of them so she can get praise from Mavic Chen. But as their adventure continues and she gets transported along with them into a multi-dimensional chaos, she finds herself soon realizing the exact danger at large and how the Daleks are part of Mavic Chen's plan. They go to volcanic worlds, they go to worlds of invisible monsters that killed the Daleks, and most importantly, they find themselves in ancient Egypt. Upon reaching ancient Egypt, the Doctor comes across an old friend of his, the meddling monk, who's up to his old tricks again. The monk is passing through and all of a sudden comes into contact with the Daleks. He rats the Doctor and his friends out in hopes for his own survival, but of course this becomes futile, and the Doctor gets his own back on the monk by transporting his whole TARDIS into looking like a police box, just like the Doctor's, so that when they go looking for him, they'll be tracking down the monk instead. Sarah Kingdom and Stephen and the Doctor go off again, and in one of their adventures, in the Feast of Stephen, the Doctor and Sarah Kingdom and Stephen are all running around a film set, where the Doctor comes across a very sad clown who feels very upset and says his material in Hollywood's not quite working. He also points out the fact that he's very upset because Chaplin already beat him to the wallpaper joke. Now back to where I was at with the thing about, so the monk's been stopped, but the consequence being the Doctor has sadly had to give Mavic Chen the power source he so much wanted. They all travel back to the planet Kembel, in which the Alliance is growing in frustration. Mavic Chen attends the meeting, being pompous and really letting the power go to his head. He truly believes that he is more powerful than the Daleks, and he believes that he has them at his mercy, and that they are one and the same, making him the most important man in the room. But of course the whole meeting riots over this, and the Supreme Dalek and all the Daleks disappear off. When Stephen and Sarah Kingdom go looking for the Doctor, instead they find Mavic Chen and get in a dispute about the reason why they're there. Mavic Chen's ego has been boosted so much that he thinks that the Doctor would try and take his place away from the Daleks. But Stephen and Sarah Kingdom try and reassure Mavic Chen that he's nothing to the Daleks. They don't make alliances, they don't even keep promises. But Mavic Chen doesn't believe a word of this. He just thinks they're trying to get at him and dig away so that the Doctor can take his place. But eventually, Mavic Chen realizes the truth. He finds himself in a hallway where he tries to demand a bunch of Daleks around, but they point out to him that his usefulness is over, and so they kill Mavic Chen. Sarah Kingdom and Stephen and the Doctor have one last play of the cards. The only way to destroy the Time Destructor is to overload it, but it all comes at a cost. When the Doctor and Stephen and Sarah Kingdom go out, the Doctor tries to stop the Time Destructor himself, but this, of course, starts to irritate him. Sarah Kingdom goes out in hopes to be able to save the Doctor from the power of the Time Destructor, but instead slowly starts to turn to dust, as her body is aged to death in the power of the Time Destructor. The Doctor and Stephen stand in the TARDIS after finally escaping the effects of the weapon. The Daleks are even crushed down themselves as they scream in the night air of the sand and the dunes, as the Time Destructor eats away at them with its overcompensating time distortion. The pair of them, standing in the hole of the TARDIS, begin to look up, and Stephen starts to remorse over all the death. He's glad he stopped the Daleks, but he will never live down the fact of how many people had to die. Katerina, Brett, and Sarah Kingdom. So what were my thoughts on the Dalek Master Plan? I loved it. Honestly, I loved it. It is one of the most brutal examples of classic Who. I mean, we've had the Toymaker, we've had the Savages, we've had the Romans, but nothing when it comes to Dalek stories, personally, do I feel like it's as brutal as this one. The idea that Katerina, as I said, sadly goes out the airlock, but then Brett and Sarah Kingdom are both heavy victims of the Daleks' power. And that is what I think truly sets this story so high. Is the idea that, yes, the Doctor can save the day, but at a cost. As he points out halfway through one of the stories, one of the characters points out that he's a great man, but the Doctor says, no, I just do what I do, because it's what needs to be done. And I think that's the most important lesson to be learned in this whole arc of the story. He does what he does because it needs to be done. And for that reason, I give the Daleks' master plan a solid 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, Allons-y, and stay beautiful, you beautiful people.